we'll do our best to get by. So when we get Scott Miller on the air, we'll start messing with him right away. He's such a good guy. They're both great guys, and a lot of the comments when I put this on Facebook was they're just class acts, and you'll find out that they are.
Well, I think what's cool, Lace, is just being here for the Wiry birthdays has been a big moment to hear that so many times on the radio,
Miller, and
actually be here for it. And I know for sure that the Knowles family is listening in right now. And one of my favorite Wiry experiences is in the fall listening to the Knowles, listening to Rob call a football game. And I associate that with fall. He's a good guy, and he calls a great game.
He does, doesn't he?
It's amazing. The picture he creates in your mind as you're listening, and I know they're listening. He always gives me a shout out during games too.
He's excellent. He really is. He could go to a higher level, in my opinion. That's how good he is. Scott Miller, are you there? Scott Miller? Okay. Good morning to you. How's everything in North Carolina?
Everything is great. Everybody is getting excited for the Duke North Carolina game tonight. So
that's tonight.
Yeah, Cooper Flag's going to do some damage, Mil.
There's Scott Cutaiar. Say hello to him. Your buddy.
Yes. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Mel.
Are you going to the game? Are you going to be going to that game?
No, I'm not, because I don't want to. The tickets are very pricey. So
okay, how many North Carolina Duke games have you gone to? Been there for?
Dean Dome, probably I would say 10, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's great experience, isn't it?
Unbelievable experience. I do eventually want to go to a game at Duke, but the gym is so much smaller, so it's obviously the tickets are a lot more expensive.
Yeah. How far are you from Duke?
About 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Triangle. It's all right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to start off with something that I just wrote to Scott Cutaiar earlier, and then I'll get to some of the questions. And I don't know if you guys both know this, but Plattsburgh High School has the most college basketball coaches ever in New York State history, head college basketball coaches. And that's according to Dave Archer of the Basketball Coaches Association of New York. And why do you, we'll start out with Scott Cutaiar. Why do you think this happened? Why do we have the most?
So, do you know, when you look at that, are most of those coaches from like the Ray Holmes coaching tree, like they played for Ray, for Coach Holmes?
I'll tell you who they are.
Yeah.
Charlie Mason, who's at New England College.
That was Mike Flynn, right? He played for Mike Flynn.
Yeah. Rob de Grand Prix,
Mike Flynn.
who's at Hilbert. And then we had Steve Holmes, who was at Geneseo and Salisbury State. And then we have Kevin Doherty, your high school coach, and who did a great job at Clinton. And some guy by the name of Tom Lacey, I think his name is, was also head coach at Clinton. But so Plattsburgh High School has had only 5 coaches since 1950. George Kimball, successful, Ray Holmes, Mike Flynn, Kevin Doherty, and now Chris Hartman. So, Scott, what do you think?
I found that when you sent that this morning, to think about that, only 5 coaches since 1960. You think of, like, in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers, or organizations that don't have a lot of turnover, and that's where you see a lot of consistency. I know from my experience growing up in the Plattsburgh program, just the passion for the game of basketball, the love of the game. And when you have people who love the game of basketball, they want to continue when their playing days are over and contribute to the game. And I think I noticed that playing for Coach Doherty and growing up when my father coached for many years in the program, and just the love of the game. And I think that's one of the reasons. And I think consistency as well. People saw the same people in the same position for many years, and there was some press. It was prestigious to be in that position, and I think that encourages people to continue. I think there's also a lot of education and teaching. In my experience playing in Plattsburgh, I felt it was like an extension of the classroom, and you were learning nonstop. It was playing, but you were also learning, and when you acquire that knowledge, it's just natural to go into that after your playing days are done.
Scott Miller, what do you think? Isn't that it's a great accomplishment by Plattsburgh High School? And
yeah, and I agree with Scott around the passion aspect. I also, as much as I don't like Duke, I think it's a good example of when you have excellent coaching, it kind of breeds other coaching in the community. I mean, you look at Duke and the number of coaches they produce from Mike Krzyzewski, and I think the same is true with Plattsburgh. You had Ray Holmes, Mike Flynn, Kevin Doherty, and they taught the game at such a high level. I think it created that passion, that excitement, and that desire to help others get better in the game of basketball. And I think that just bred new coaches coming into the community and helping the other programs.
Thank you for that. I want to ask. We're going to start with Scott Cutaiar because he ran such a successful jump camp, and people he started in year 2000. I don't think people really ever even heard of a jump camp. I want to find out where he got the idea from, and we'll start out with that. Scott?
So jump camp came out of just working out with kids. I was coaching. It was early in my teaching career, and I was coaching JV basketball at Beekmantown, and it was I coached for Mace Odebo's, and then Mace left to take a counseling job down in Guilderland, and I actually became the varsity coach at Beekmantown. And I had some players, one particular, Slade Tulip, wanted to work out, so we just started working out. And I was young, I was still able to exercise at a pretty high level at that time. So started working out, and then other kids joined us. So it'd be Slade and I working out, and then there were 3 or 4 kids working out, and then all of a sudden a dozen or so kids working out in the gym after school doing plyometrics and sprint training and things of that nature. So I just got the idea in my head that I wonder if this would be a good summer pro, because you always talk about development in the summer. That's when you get better. It's hard to get better during the season individually. So the idea is I'm going to try to run something in the summer. It started very small, only Beekmantown kids. And it was one of those things that when kids went back in the fall, they were in decent shape and they were ready to go, and they got stronger, they got faster, and it just grew every year after that. And then it was only Beekmantown kids. Then someone said, hey, could you bring in kids from other school? And it grew. I did it for 22 years, and at that time I was it was just a good solid workout in the summer, 8-week program. But after 22 years, I decided that I wanted to have some summers. I hadn't had any summers in my career, so I offered to my staff. I said, jump camp is either done or somebody could take it over. And a young teacher named Brett McClellan has taken it over. He's done a great job in continuing the tradition and providing opportunities for athletes to improve and grow in the summer. So it's been good to give back to the community in that way, and to help grow athletics or maintain athletics, or show kids that you can improve in your favorite sports by becoming faster, becoming stronger, becoming more athletic.
What was the most that you've had?
So before, my last handful of years, I was over 350 local kids working out, and I believe it's even grown because Brett has that youth and enthusiasm to bring in fresh ideas. He was able to work for me and continue the foundation of the program, but bring in some new ideas. And I think I just think it's valuable for our area. That's something I don't think you think of in a small, like a rural area, having a program like this, and to provide those opportunities for local athletes. Great facilities at Beekmantown. Beekmantown's been great throughout the career, promoting that and encouraging kids exercising during the summer.
Scott Miller, did you ever come to Plattsburgh and see what he did? It was amazing.
Yeah, it was. Actually, I was going to add, it's funny, during our time when Scott and I were in high school, we had to be self-motivated to kind of do those workouts on our own. I think he really discovered a gap that truly existed for high school athletes that wanted to get better, but there was no infrastructure in place. Other than going to a week-long basketball camp, there was nothing in the summer really to get them prepared, for the upcoming season. I even look at my son's a freshman in high school here in North Carolina, and he'll do AAU basketball. He'll have the opportunity to do private workouts, but there's nothing like a kind of a jump camp that I'm aware of around here that helps get kids ready. And I think for Plattsburgh, it really gives kids a great advantage going into the athletic season to do that. So
before I get into the questions, I want to add a funny story about Scott's dad. One of the best coaches that I've ever had. He even remembers I played football for him. First of all, I don't want to be talking about myself. It's about you guys, but I want to give Coach Cutaiar his props. And but it's a funny story. And I played football. I was horrible. First of all, did you guys play football?
No way. I wasn't. I wasn't tough enough to play football.
Okay.
No, I didn't want to get hit.
Okay. Well, at any rate, I played football, and I was number 25. There was no position for me. I was horrible, and I didn't have a helmet big enough for my head. I really, so they had to order one, and one finally came in, and according to Mr. Coach Cutaiar, the UPS guy said to him, "If this doesn't fit his big head, have him try the box on." So that was something. And of course, all those guys, like Coach Doherty and Neil Facette, they still bring that up, So okay, let's get into the heart and the matter of the questions. Okay, let's start out. We're always going to start out with Scott Miller, okay, because he's calling in. Okay, your biggest local influences, and you can have two local influences.
Local influences. I think for me, just because I was younger and the success he had, I'd have to say Tom Masson.
Wow.
He played basketball and was a pitcher on the state champions for the baseball team. So I would say him, and I would say Matt Sames, just because I think I was in middle school when he was in high school, and he then became a coach for me. But I think both of them were big influences, as well as Charlie Mason. Charlie Mason,
yes,
as you mentioned, became a coach, but as I mentioned, there wasn't really a ton of infrastructure in the summer to help kids develop, but he was very good in helping me kind of get better during the summer when he didn't have to. He volunteered to do.
Sure. Scott Cutaiar?
Oh, those were great answers, Mel. I before I say mine, I'd piggyback on Tom Masson. Something that I was grateful for him is he was a senior our sophomore year, and we got pulled up to the varsity. He was a true leader. He included us. He was tough on us, but in a positive way. And that was a good call, Scott. I thought that Tom was very influential in me as well. But I kind of went when you proposed this question. I thought about adults who were influential, and you mentioned my father. Without a doubt, my father has been the most influential person in my life. I kind of followed in my footsteps and based my career around his, teacher, coaching, and I think the thing I respected most about my dad was the fact that he took the most pride in coaching at the younger levels and building a program. The other one being Coach Doherty, who was very influential when we played our sophomore year. It was really the first time I got to know Coach, even though he was a kind of a Plattsburgh basketball legend, in his own right.
Sure
but
was.
what I appreciate him, and not only did I coach, or did I play for him, I coached as an assistant in his program, and just the knowledge he has and the way he taught the game of basketball. was something that I appreciated. And both, my dad and coach have had a huge impact in my career and just the way I teach, the way I coach.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say something about Coach Cutaiar, Scott's father. There's no doubt he should be in the Plattsburgh Hall of Fame. I know he coached mostly JV, but those are the way that we prepare for varsity, and he was just such an outstanding coach. Very positive, very similar to Coach Doherty. The kids really love playing for him, and I think we should. I'm on the committee at Plattsburgh High School Hall of Fame committee, and we'll try again. Scott Cutaiar, you want to add anything to that?
Oh, there's no doubt. I think you've got to value people who help build your program and take pride in that. I think one of my dad's most enjoyable times in his coaching career was coaching JV for Coach Doherty when Coach Doherty was the varsity coach. You mentioned how similar they are. I would agree with that. I think there's definitely a place for my dad in the PHS Hall of Fame. I think he personifies what Plattsburgh's all about.
Without a doubt, yep. Your biggest national influences, Scott Miller, national influences.
Jeez. For me, unfortunately, I didn't get to play for him, but Jerry Walsh did recruit me to go to Potsdam, and he was somebody that I felt like was just, it's still to this day, I still talk to him, pretty regularly. He's just such a great coach and great ability to connect with people. And he was always somebody that I had always kind of nationally admired, and I think was a big influence on me.
Scott Cutaiar?
So, the kind of the age of Scott Miller and I grew up in the basketball world, and kind of graduating playing in the late 80s, early 90s. That was Mike Krzyzewski's rise too. So if you keep the idea in the basketball world, I studied Mike Krzyzewski when I was a young teacher and a young coach, and a lot of his principles. So I thought he was he was somebody that I would consider a national influence, somebody I learned from.
Yeah.
We're going to take a really short break, and we'll come back in about 45 seconds. Okay, thank you.
Hey folks, Ernie Galarza at Della Motorsports. I'm with Sean Shambo. Sean, what's going on?
Snowmobiles. Come buy them.
Here on Hometown Radio, WIRY. Again, we have Scott Miller, who's on the phone with us, and we have Scott Cutaiar here in the studios. And now we go back to Tom Lacey.
Okay. We'll start with Scott Miller. Your best high school game that you recall?
I think, Scott and I had a pretty successful career. I think there was a lot of games I would remember and kind of mention, but I think the biggest one, just because of the emotion of it all, was for the championship, the CVAC championship, playing at Memorial Hall against Seton Catholic, playing against good friends Dennis McFadden and a future college teammate and Scott Silva. But the emotion of playing in that championship, and then a person who was almost like a second father to me, Danny Adams, had passed away that day. And the kind of the emotion that was involved in wanting to win that for him and winning it for ourselves, obviously, and the program. I think that would be the biggest one.
Of course. Scott Cutaiar?
Yeah, I'd have to mirror that answer. I was saying to you before we came on, Lace, that I don't have the recall of like you. I hear the way that Coach Doherty and you, that when I'm around that crew that I looked up to when I was younger, and I hear you talk about games, and I'm like, how the heck do they remember all of that? And so, yeah, I do think we lost by buzzer beaters our sophomore and junior years in the sectional championship. So I would agree with Scott that there was a very emotion-filled day that playing at Memorial. And playing at Memorial used to be a big deal. I know people who go to Memorial now, they don't see the seating capacity that we had, or the just standing room only crowd, where they would literally after each game have to clear the gym for the next crew to come in when you had the B, C, and D championship games, and the atmosphere. And I just think it was special when you've lost twice before that, and to finally get that win. Our senior year, I would agree that was a great time.
Was Jeremy Dubé? Did you guys play against him?
Yeah, so our correct me if I'm wrong, Mill, but I think our junior year is when Seton and St. John's merged.
Yep.
So
correct.
So we played against Jeremy, and his junior year, his senior year was our junior year. So they beat us in the sectional championship game. Then his senior year.
Okay, I'm hoping Scott Silva is listening right now. There's an outside chance he is, but if he is, when they had their pep rally, he went in for a dunk, and I think he broke his arm or something like that. So I just wanted to throw that one at you, Scott. At a pep rally, at St. John's, I was there too. Talk about your colleges, Scott. You went to Potsdam. Talk about just in general.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was exciting. Like I said, I got to play with an unbelievable player and teammate and friend, Scott Silva. And I went there with the hope that I was going to be playing for Jerry Walsh, and unfortunately for me, fortunately for him, he got a great Division I head coaching job at Iona. But then that kind of resulted in me playing for Bill Mitchell, who I really enjoyed playing for him. It definitely was a different environment, and unfortunately, like Scott did with those structured workouts, we'd have our summer workouts at Potsdam, and unfortunately on the first summer, I really, really, really injured my back, and it unfortunately affected most of my career because of the nerve pain that I experienced from that injury. So, but overall, I don't regret any of it. I actually got to coach a little bit in my final year, and overall, thought it was a great experience.
Scott Cutaiar, RIT.
Yeah, I didn't have the same experience as Scott. Scott was heavily recruited in high school. We used to have, that was back in the day where college coaches would come watch players play and be in the gym. And I wanted to play college basketball. I probably wasn't good enough to play college basketball, but Kevin Doherty, to his credit, reached out to his college basketball coach, Bob McVeigh at RIT. And I think Coach probably, said, because Kevin Doherty played for Bob McVeigh, and he probably said, hey, I got a kid who loves the game, who will work hard for you. And so Coach McVeigh gave me an opportunity. And my freshman year at RIT, I dressed, but I never got I don't think I got in, but I was at practice every day, and I worked hard, and I was a good team and program player. My sophomore year, I'd earned some respect of my teammates, and I worked out a lot in the summer. Got a lot stronger. I wasn't very strong coming out of high school. Got a lot stronger the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, and I actually got some run my sophomore year.
Nice.
It was at that time, ironically, that I was working Coach McVeigh's basketball camp, and I was there to referee. The players would ref in the summer, and a coach backed out at the last minute. And Coach McVeigh said to me, hey, I need you to run a team this week. And that was like one of my first tastes of teaching and education. And even though I grew up in education, but the idea of becoming a teacher entered my mind. RIT isn't a school to be a teacher. It's an engineering school. So I came back to Plattsburgh State and got a teaching degree. But I enjoyed my college basketball experience. I would never take it away. We won the ECAC championship my sophomore year, and I got to be a part of that. So, yeah, I would never take it away. It gave me a taste of what commitment it takes to play at that next level.
Sure, and Coach McVeigh,
great guy.
A classy guy,
and just loyal. Like just the idea to trust one of his former players, like Coach Doherty, to send him somebody his way, and just give me a shot. It's something I'm always grateful for.
Okay, we'll start with Scott Miller on this. When you had a high school game, and I want you to think of, all right, this guy's going to guard me today. Is there anyone that really stands out like, oh, gosh, I don't want him guarding me? Anyone at all on another team? Not practice doesn't count.
What's that?
Practice doesn't count.
So I can't say you?
No, you can't.
Okay. I probably would have to say Ron Kirk from Beekmantown. When he wanted to, play defensive really well, he was very tough to play against. And I know Mike Bedworth,
Oh,
Mike
yeah.
Bedworth, at Seton Catholic was really tough as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Scott Cutaiar?
Yeah, I had a real hard time thinking back to this question where I was lucky because the team's best defender usually was guarding Scott. So the teams would focus their attention on trying to stop him. And then the best, the tallest defender on the team would guard like Brian Kreitzberg or one of those guys. So, I think of some of the great players that played during our time. Like our sophomore year, I remember Ray Beebe was a heck of a player. Oh my gosh. I remember being on the court with him being like, I don't belong out here. This guy is unbelievable. But Scott mentioned Mike Bedworth. He was a tenacious defender and a hard worker. Scott Silva would work hard, and his size and his length would be tough. Do I recall? Did Bryant Butler? He played at Plattsburgh State, but he played at Seton.
Yes.
Correct. Is that correct, Mel?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember him being long, and I think the people I had the most trouble with were the people who were long because I was a shooter, so I'd have to get my shot off, and those were the people I struggled with the most.
In your opinion, what made Coach Doherty such a great coach? And we'll start out with Scott Miller.
So I think first of all, his ability to teach was second to none. I think his ability to connect with players. I had the fortune of playing for a lot of different coaches, but he was able to connect with me at just such a different level and able to really understand my motivations, but also be able to push the right buttons with me that I think is not something that every coach can do. And, going back to that question, you asked me about my biggest influences, and I was speaking from a developmental standpoint in the off season, et cetera. But I mean, to me, he was my biggest influence overall, just because like I said, he got me mentally. He knew how to push my buttons, but somebody that I'd run through a brick wall for to get better and help the team win. So.
Scott Cutaiar?
To build on everything that Scott just said, which I agree with, the depth that he looks into the game and analyzes the game from multiple perspectives. Like when I was his assistant coach, he might say, give me a scouting report on us. Like, where are we the worst, or what's how are teams going to attack? Like, he wasn't afraid to examine his own team and identify and address weaknesses with his own team and prepare. So I think the depth of his the way he prepared for games and even practices. When I was his assistant, we'd have 20-minute conversations before practice started about the details of the details of what were going to happen and why we were doing things in practice that day. And I think that level of preparedness was something that separated him from a lot of people I've been around in the game.
And that's the reason why he's in the New York State Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame, is because just an outstanding coach. And it seems like anyone that played for him loved him. And I know, Brian Kreitzberg, you're listening, and you would probably say the same thing that Scott Miller and Scott Cutaiar just said. As you guys know, Kevin Doherty was an outstanding shooter. You know that. Did anyone ever challenge him to a shooting contest? Did you guys ever do anything like that?
I did, and I got my butt spanked by him. So, yes, I did.
Yes.
I don't know if he was a heck of a shooter and player, but I think one of the things that was good when he first started coaching, established himself, is that was during a time where a coach could step in and play in practice and show some things that maybe aren't allowed in today's world. And I think when we saw that this guy's a player, that earned credibility. I don't recall specific competitions, but I mean, we would shoot afterwards, and man, he could stick it.
Oh, yeah. I want you guys to talk about that championship game at Memorial Hall. Just, tell me a few things about it that you remember. Scott Miller, that championship game that you guys won.
Yeah, I think, like I said, going back, the biggest thing for me was the emotion involved with the passing of Dan Adams. And I think, it was something that we were looking forward to the whole year because, we had, as Scott had mentioned, we'd been there a few times and weren't successful. So being able to play against Seton Catholic, who, we had some big competitive events with them in the past, and to be able to end up winning that, I think was something we'll always remember.
How much did you beat them by, and is there any particular play that stands out?
I don't recall a specific play that stood out, and I don't think I don't remember the exact score, but I know we won by more than 2. So.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Scott Cutaiar?
Yeah, what's interesting thinking back about, that's a long time ago. There's a sense, a little bit of relief. I mean, we were we were the favorites. We were supposed to win. We'd been snake bit twice before, buzzer beaters the previous 2 years, and there's a little bit of fear that are we going to be able to pull it off? And so there was relief after a game like that. And I agree with Scott. I don't necessarily remember specific instances. One of the things when I think back about our team, that was what I consider a special team, is the depth of that team. I mean, we had the MVP of the league, Scott Miller, who was our point guard. So we had the trust and reliability of the best player in the league. We had Kyle Watson, who went on to run Division I runner at Villanova. We had Brian Kreitzberg, who was a workhorse and strong and did a lot of dirty work that he, probably at the time didn't get enough credit for. We had a kid like Jesse Garrett, who was no nonsense, tough defender. Kids like Jeff Erich, who was a year away from being his turn as a junior, who was, willing to do the dirty work. John Mulholland, Jeff Hobner, I just felt I remember looking back at that team of the balance that we had and the depth, which was, just a great experience at the time. So, but it's nice to be able to say you want to, even as an older, older on, you won a sectional championship. It's nice to be able to hang your hat on that.
Who was the German player that you guys had?
Icelandic. John Thordenson.
John Thordenson.
Thordenson, yeah. We had a kid from Iceland who, he was a good player in his own right, but he came at a time where we had been together for a while, and he got some run, but he loved being part of that team. He had a great time.
He did.
Do you guys ever hear from him at all? Probably not, huh?
I haven't, but I just know I saw something on Facebook years ago where he said something about how much he missed Plattsburgh and stuff. So, like Scott said, I think he really enjoyed being part of the team and part of the community. So,
I think John Mulholland has stayed in touch with him a little bit, and actually, it might have visited him. John's a traveler, so yeah. But I think he was involved in coaching in Iceland and got involved in their national program as a coach.
Yeah. Did Potsdam ever play RIT? Did you guys ever play against each other?
We did not.
Nope.
Okay. Did you guys ever argue to one another on the court? Because you guys are such great friends.
I don't know. I don't recall if we argued on court, but I will say one time, and Lacey, you were involved in this. He was coaching at a Plattsburgh State camp, and he needed to stay at my house, and he went out with you and Neil Facette, and I think you two were bad influences on me. So let's just say my room smelled a little different in the morning.
Okay.
Scott wasn't happy with some of the decisions I made that day. In terms of I think that was one of the things as we played. When you have somebody of Scott's quality, like Scott was not only a great leader, he was the best ball handler in the league. He could score at will. and he was a true leader of that team. So like when you have somebody of like Scott's ability when he was in high school, it's hard to argue with that. You know, it's hard to have disagreements. You just kind of ride his coattails and you know, let go where he takes you.
I'm going to do some word association, okay, and whatever comes to your mind in some brief words. And we'll always start out with Scott Miller.
Lucky me.
Let's go. Let's start out with Neil Fassett. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Just tough dude, funny guy. You know, and now very successful in his professional career. I think those are the things that would stand out to me.
Okay, Scott Cutaiar.
Word that comes to mind with Neil is steady. I was fortunate to coach modified basketball at Plattsburgh when I was in college. There were two teams. He coached one and I coached the other. I learned a lot from Neil just with his steady approach. He never seems to get rattled. So that's a word I would say. Great guy.
Lisa Zafarakis. Scott Miller.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say a trailblazer. I mean, I think you know, women's sports obviously today are you know, at the forefront and continuing to gain popularity. But I wouldn't say women's sports was at the level then that it is now. And I think she used to play on teams with Scott and I, and she was a fantastic player, and you know, I think really helped reset the bar for women's sports in North Country.
Scott?
I can't top that answer. He nailed it. She was a trailblazer. She did, you know, going to a girls' basketball game was an event. Lisa helped to promote girls' basketball in the area, and yeah, I felt she was a leader.
Do you guys stay in touch with her at all?
Actually, my dad stays in touch with her a lot, and I'm going to. Lisa lives in London this summer, and I'm actually going to touch base with her when she's there. But my father coached her, and was very close with Mr. and Mrs. Zafarakis, and so they stay in touch. Mill, I'm not sure if you do.
I just on Facebook, but nothing other than that. Yeah. So.
She does donate to Adirondack Coast basketball camp every year, which is such a nice thing. Yeah. Okay, let's go with Hollis Chapman.
Well, he was a teammate of my brother's at University of Rhode Island. He used to beat the heck out of me when I was younger. I mean, I think when he was in high school, I was in 4th, 5th grade, something like that. But, I mean, tremendous athlete, tremendous running back. So.
For me, just reputation. Like I wasn't around. You know, I don't remember those days because he was at the Miller house, but that was before that. So just you hear his name in terms of his stature and as a running back and what he contributed.
Brian Kreitzberg.
Incredible rebounder. I would great player, and part of a championship team.
Yeah, not given the recognition probably he would have gotten if he played in some other programs, and he probably could have gone on several teams in the area and completely dominated and been the primary player on multiple teams in the area.
He's another guy I think should be in the Plattsburgh High School Hall of Fame, in my opinion. Okay, Scott Miller, you probably know this guy better than Scott Cutaiar, but Denfield James.
Oh, man. Quickest guy I've ever played with or played against. Unbelievable speed, athleticism, amazing competitor. I was a freshman at Potsdam when he was a senior. He was just incredible. And I know he played for you as well.
Yes.
At Clinton Timothy.
Yep. We stay in touch, by the way. He's doing very well in Atlanta. Very well.
Good.
Yep. Do you remember him, Scott?
A little bit, just more the speed and athleticism. I just watched him play a little bit. Yeah.
Bob McVane. Scott Miller, I'm not sure if you know him well, but...
not really, so I probably defer to Scott on that.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Legendary, loyal. Like, he's still, 40 years at RIT? Just grateful for the opportunity he provided me as a young guy who probably didn't belong there. So he was just Really good guy.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to Ray Holmes, the legendary Ray Holmes, who's going to be inducted finally in the New York State Basketball Hall of Fame this year. It's about time.
Yeah.
So,
I think for me, because I was the youngest of 6 kids in the Miller family, I think fear is the thing that I associate with it. Because I used to go to the Plattsburgh State basketball camps, and he'd always pick on me, and I remember doing bricks for him, like almost it felt like every other day, just to improve my defense. But I mean, obviously, an unbelievable coach, and somebody I would have loved the opportunity to have played for.
Mm-hmm.
I think of the word foundation. I mean, you think about how many people, how the foundation of how many programs or lives were based on his philosophies and his teachings in terms of in the basketball community. And I think that's just amazing, the foundation he provided for basketball in the area.
Mm-hmm. Joe Cardney.
The greatest player to ever play at Plattsburgh High School.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's how, we grew up. That's the name, right? That's the name when you grow up that that you think of, Joe Cardinay, associated with Plattsburgh High School basketball.
Mm-hmm. He is. I've tried to get him on the show. He's just too humble. He really is so humble, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't like to brag about himself, and it's really not bragging when he's such a great guy. So I'd love to somehow get him on the show. I'm going to get to some comical stuff.
Yeah,
but
I have some questions from your list I think we should address.
Okay, go ahead.
So the Caitlin Clark question, Lace.
All right.
So Lace sends a question, game to 21.
Oh, yeah.
You in your prime versus Caitlin Clark. And I sent it to Mill. I texted to Mill. I said, when I read Lacey's questions, the first thing I thought of is Caitlin Clark would beat me 21-0. That was my first thought when I I would think that unless I had the ball and I was able to get a shot off quickly and hit something quick, boy, she's amazing. I think she would smoke me in my prime.
Mm-hmm. Scott Miller, in your prime, scorer, Caitlin Clark versus
I think
Scott
I
Miller.
may be able to get 3 points up, but that's it. I think she would, same. So.
Okay. All right, that's.
What were you thinking, Lace? What do you think Tom Lacey in his prime?
I'm going to say Tom Lacey 21, Caitlin Clark 4. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh my God!
I'm going to throw this one in there, and again, I don't like talking about myself, but as you know, I worked Department of Corrections, and I had training at Clinton, and I went in there to shoot baskets on my lunch break, and in the gym was Tupac shooting baskets. And he was, I don't know why he was in there by himself, but he challenged me one-on-one up to 21. And guys, he was flat out trash. I'm not kidding you. He was horrible. One of the worst players I've ever seen. And I destroyed him pretty good, I mean.
So your logic is because you beat Tupac, you could beat Caitlin Clark.
Yes, it is. Yes. All right, we'll move on. Your biggest. We still on? Okay. Other than Seton, your biggest rival in high school. Team.
Boy. For me, it was probably Beekmantown, just because there was games earlier in our career where we struggled a little bit against them, and Ronnie Kirk was incredible. I think it was my junior year. He was just really tough to play against.
Okay.
Yeah, Beekmantown's a good one. A team that was solid, that Peru was solid during that time, and we just always seemed to get the upper hand on them. But they were a solid team, and you can go back with Beekmantown. Beekmantown used to have a huge advantage. If anybody knows the Beekmantown Middle School gym now, that used to be the high school gym, and that floor was small. And man, you would just have, it was packed and intense, and that was one of the best atmospheres around just because it was so tiny and the floor was so small. Games were pretty intense, but yeah, I would say Beatmantown was a good rival.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You guys watched the Summer Olympics, right? I thought they were outstanding. And of all the events, not just basketball, who was your MVP in the Summer Olympics?
For this summer?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You didn't see that question?
Yeah, I did not. So I'll have to defer to Scott on that.
So, yeah, when I saw this question, my wife was a gymnast in high school. So before the Olympics, we watched the Simone Biles documentary on Netflix, and then followed her during the Olympics. And I would say Simone Biles, just because that's a sport where you are often at your best at your youngest, and to see somebody, what is she, 27 in the gymnastics world? That's like being, Tom Brady playing at 45 years old. I thought she was very impressive. That pommel horse guy too, the guy that did the pommel horse, was pretty neat too. I thought he stole the show.
So one thing that impressed me the most about her is obviously she's just an incredible athlete, but she went through some mental struggles in the previous, I think it was the previous Olympics.
Yes.
With some health issues, and I think for her to overcome that was such a big deal, because just the difficulty that that gymnastics is, and her able to overcome that, to me, that was what made her, to me, the athlete that stood out the best.
Mine, just to throw it in there, was Sydney McLaughlin. She just dominated the 400 hurdles. It was a joke how bad she beat people. So that was mine. Are you guys aware that Plattsburgh is actually, other than Beijing, because that's a gigantic city, but Plattsburgh is the only city in the entire world that had the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics an hour from us. In 1976, obviously, it was in Montreal, an hour away, unless you're held up at the border for 45 minutes. In 1980, Scott Miller, I'm going to quiz you. Where was it in 1980?
Lake Placid.
Okay.
Good job, Mel.
All right.
Thank you.
I had to ask that question. As we know, that far basket at Plattsburgh High School, the one with
the bleachers underneath?
Yeah. Did you guys have trouble shooting on that?
I don't recall having issues there. I thought it provided one of the neatest atmospheres in the area, having bleachers underneath the basket. I mean, is there any other gym in the area that provides that opportunity? So I think that's great for players to get that experience, and for fans to get that experience. Boy, the fans there used to be wild, and I don't remember shooting issues there when you practice every single day.
I think just practicing there helped kind of get over that. So.
And can you believe it's still there today? I mean, it's been there forever. And all these other schools are getting new gyms, and Plattsburgh just maintains that gym and keeps winning. A great reputation. So I like this question. Did you guys like wearing the orange uniforms or the black uniforms or the white uniforms? Scott Miller, which ones did you like? And did you have short shorts back then?
I had super short shorts, and I loved it. At the time, I thought it was cool. I would probably say the black.
Okay.
I just thought that was kind of a cool look. So.
Yeah, I would agree with the black. What was cool, I don't know if Scott remembers this, but he was the driving. We got new uniforms our senior year, and we got the ones that were the replica of the Bulls jerseys, didn't we, Mel?
Yes.
So we got the replica of the Bulls jerseys in Plattsburgh High School colors, and so we actually transitioned from the short era to the mid-short era. We were, because those uniforms were a little bit those shorts were a little bit longer, but yeah, we had the Chicago Bulls uniforms.
Wow. Okay, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back shortly.
Getting your child home safely.
Tap your views together.
We're back with Scott Cutaiar and Scott Miller, And I'd like to talk about families. We'll start with Scott Miller. Just, a quick synopsis. And first of all, I'm so sorry about your sister Bonnie's husband. And,
Thank you.
She, if she's listening, Bonnie, very sorry. You're another class act. So, okay, talk quickly about your family, Scott.
Oh, about my family?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't
Well,
hear
let
that
me
part.
ask, how old were your parents when you were born? Because you were late.
That's what a lawyer calls leading the witness there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was when I was born, my mother was 44, about to turn 45, and I think my dad was 54.
Oh my gosh.
So I was what you call an oops. But
You're more than an oops, Mel. You're more than an oops.
Yeah, I was grateful that I was an oops, and grateful to be part of a great family, being the baby of 6.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay.
Well, Scott's humble. I'd like to talk about his family. I mean, the Millers are legendary in the Plattsburgh community. And one thing, you talk about chemistry and things. One thing that Mr. Miller used to do is he would record the games on wiry. He would tape the games and then make copies for us to listen to. And this is before video is what it is now. Listening to Mike Mannix call a game on the radio and hear your name and to listen to the way the game is described. Mr. Miller used to do that all the time, and we'd pass the tape around, and everyone would go listen on their Walkmans or their tape decks to the game.
Walkmans.
But Mr. Miller was our number one fan, and Mrs. Miller was the Miller family and the Plattsburgh community.
I know,
was just a rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And when I did word association, I wanted to put in wiry. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind on wiry, Scott Miller?
Scott, yeah. So for me, the biggest thing that stands out for wiry was, Mike Mannix would be one, but also, and I don't know if they still do it, the birthday kind of announcement where
I got to sit on and I get to do the birthdays today, Mel.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I was here.
Well,
I witnessed it.
Table.
Yes.
Walk around the table. I do remember that, and then
March
song playing. So
yeah.
March around the table. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. So that to me definitely stood out.
Okay.
I mean, Mike Mannix. He could call a ball game, and then I'm so glad that Rob Knowles continues that tradition. I hope it can last as long as possible. But just hearing a game called on the radio was just something special.
Mm-hmm. And like we talked about, Rob Knowles is excellent. He really is. You're okay. And here's another. Scott Miller? Who'd you take to the prom?
Oh my goodness!
Don't say you don't remember.
I took a wonderful lady named Michelle to the prom.
Okay. All right. Scott Cutaiar?
For me, Jenny Wayne took pity on me and agreed to go to the prom with me. That was my prom date. Jennifer Wayne.
Okay. Some people don't remember or don't want to remember. So.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a heads up on the question. Gave us a chance to prepare.
Yeah. What type of sneakers did you guys wear? You didn't wear the Chuck Taylor.
We weren't Chuck Taylors. Converse was huge growing up. The Magic and Larry Converses, and then I think we probably went to Nikes because Michael Jordan was coming around. But I think we started out as Converse people and then transitioned to Nike people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nike for sure.
Nike, okay. Your favorite teacher at Plattsburgh High School? Let's go with Scott Miller.
God, so I had two actually.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, Mr. Baruti was, one of my favorites, and then Mr. Gorlitz as well. He taught Spanish, so both of them were my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you go second, sometimes Scott gives. Mr. Baruti was a great teacher. His wife, Mrs. Baruti, the Baruti.
Yeah.
Family,
she was my favorite teacher.
Those are two of my favorite teachers, just because of the way they connected, in different ways. Mrs. Baruti did it through dedication and caring. And Mr. Brody was like, he liked to connect with what you were doing outside of school as well. And I thought those two were very influential. Great to see them now when I run into them out in at Hannaford's or something to chat with them.
Sure.
And catch up. Just very, very nice people.
They really are. A couple of joke questions, I had to throw them in there. And Gavin Mazurek, if you're listening, and Dave Brody, if you're listening, I'm going to have both these guys determine which one of you wins up in a one-on-one game up to 21. Who's going to win?
Between those two?
Between those two. Who wins?
So I think they're both great players.
Oh, I knew you'd back out of that one. You got to say one or the other.
I am.
Okay.
But I will say, because Gavin lives in North Carolina near me, and because he's married to a friend of mine, I'm going to say Gavin Missouri.
Okay. Gavin, okay, if you're listening, you got one vote. Now let's see what Scott Cutaiar has to say.
So I saw Dave play more than Gavin, and I was an assistant coach when Dave was playing. Not to take anything away from Gavin, but boy, Dave Peruti could score. Oh my gosh, he could put the ball in the basket. So I think in a one-on-one game, his scoring ability, not to take anything, Gavin could score as well, but I just saw Dave do it so much. When you presented that question, my initial instinct was to go with Dave, so we split on that one.
That's pretty good. Okay, your favorite. Why are you laughing, Scott Miller? There must be a reason why you're laughing.
No, just because you make me laugh, Tom.
Okay. Your favorite sports movie?
Mine would be Hoosiers.
Oh, wow. Scott Cutaiar?
I wasn't. I had a couple when I know you're asking for one, but do the Rocky movies count?
Yes.
Rocky 3 was a great movie. It was right in our time when we were growing up. Rocky 3 was great. I probably watched it 100 times. But another great movie is Miracle. You talk about the 1980 Olympics and Lake Placid. I thought that was a great sports movie as well.
I'd throw in Rudy as well.
Okay, well, without a doubt. And let's go back to a couple I missed on the word association. Let's see. The word, I don't know what this word means. Driftwood? What comes to your mind when the word driftwood comes to your head, Scott Miller?
The most common gift I would give to Tom Lacey.
Okay. All right.
When I think of driftwood, I think of longtime inside joke between Scott Miller and Tom Lacey. That's what I think of.
And just to let you guys know, that was something that John Mulholland, of all people, sent me. Something that was on Saturday Night Live about a driftwood sculpture. That's why we laugh at it. And if you guys ever Google it, it's pretty funny. That's where I got that from. So. And also, Jeremy Dubé, what comes to your mind?
A giant. Somebody I think because he was ahead of us. Both of us had aspirations for playing college basketball, and he kind of paved the way going to St. Michael's. So.
Yeah, he was just a force. He had size, strength. He had agility and athleticism for somebody his size, and. He was a heck of a player. And go ahead, Mel.
No, I was just going to say, now that we're in the world of NIL, if I had enough driftwood, I was going to offer him all the driftwood that I had if he was going to transfer to Plattsburgh High School. That would be the one thing I would have changed.
Scott, seriously though, other than Potsdam, what other schools recruited you?
Geneseo, Hamilton, I think St. John Fisher, if I remember correctly. Plattsburgh State did. I think those are the biggest ones.
Okay. And let's just go with we're past our time limit, and they always Wiry is great. They really are, and they let me go sometimes a few minutes past. So just some parting words. Scott Miller, why don't you start? because we're going to have to end the show.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, it brings back some great memories. I had great teammates and friends, especially Scott. I mean, Scott and I stay close to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Being part of an amazing community in Plattsburgh, playing for the best coach I ever played for, in Coach Doherty.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great experience, and I'm really appreciative and thankful that you allowed us to get on the call here with you today.
Mm-hmm. Scott Cutaiar?
Yeah, thanks, Lace, for letting us go down memory lane. When I got your questions, it really forced me to sit down and think about things that I hadn't thought of in a long time, and make me appreciate more the teammates we had and the coaching we had growing up, and the support from two great families and parents who wanted a lot for their kids, and it was a nice trip down memory lane. I appreciate it.
Yeah, both you guys are just class acts. There's no doubt, and you got a lot of great comments from people. Tom Masson actually said legends, which is, you
He's
guys
a
said
legend.
he was a legend. Yeah,
What a great guy.
yeah, and Brian Kritzberg's mom said that those two men were just great. She remembers that team well. They played like brothers. What an exciting season that was. Matt Sames put this green love thing. So did Mrs. Delio. And Dennis McFadden, great group, but not a great memory losing that game. So, of course. And do you guys know Coach Dory? Coach Dory, he had some nice things to say,
Chris
too.
Dory.
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Good guy. He was our age. He went to Peru. He was a baseball guy.
Yeah.
And did a lot for baseball in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said some nice things about you guys too. So he said you guys were 20-3 that last year, 14-2, and you won the Zafirakis Memorial. And Chris Copeland, I hate this team. So that's pretty funny. But again, I'm going to say it too. You guys are class acts. You really are. Always have been. I enjoyed playing with you guys. I know we played together in Burlington, and you guys made me a better player too. And it was fun. It really was fun playing with you guys. It's always fun playing with. And I don't mean this in a bad way for all the other schools, but when the Plattsburgh High School players get together, it just makes something like tight, like unity. And so, okay, you guys take care of yourselves. Go Duke. Go Duke.
Go Duke, Mel. Go Duke.
Oh, one last question. Who's going to win the Super Bowl, guys?
I wish Buffalo, but they're not in it.
I know.
All right.
I'm going to have to say Kansas City.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
I'm going to split. I'm going to go ground and pound. I'm going to say Saquon MVP.
Okay.
The Eagles are going to win.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Tom.
You too. Thanks, Tom.
See you, Mel.
Okay.